Welcome to the First Cut Podcast live on CBS Sports Network for a recap of an instant classic, a major championship that will go down in our brains and in the history books. Patrick McDonald is here. Patrick, have you recovered yet? Are you on the road to recovery?
I'm glad we're doing this the day after. Got to sleep on it, got to digest it a little bit, chew on it a little bit. I do have to apologize to the people of Minnesota because I tweeted out the 27-yard field goal attempt by Blair Walsh in the 2015 NFC wildcard game. That's the only thing I can really compare it to, what happened late Sunday at the US Open. But I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to get the intel from KP following those couple final groups, and should be a good one.
Yeah, Kyle Porter is here in KP. You experienced it much closer than most. You were out there on the grounds for what we've described as just unbelievably filled with tension. What were those final 5 or 6 holes feeling like?
Well, yeah, I was just telling you guys, first of all, good to be here. I've been following the show for a long time. Glad to finally be back on it. It was so the moment that stands out, I was just telling you guys, is we're standing on behind 17 green, 18 tee box. The great thing about one of the great things about Pinehurst, which I thought was just extraordinary. I thought it was amazing. You have all these little corridors, all these little nooks and crannies where guys will be either teeing off or walking down a fairway, and the guy or the group ahead of you or behind you, you'll be passing each other. You can always see each other. You're never really out of line of sight unless somebody's like 5 groups ahead or 4 groups ahead or something like that. So Bryson and Rory could see each other for most of the back nine, which I think was added a layer of, I think that's what made it tense and made it more dramatic. So we're standing on behind 17 green by 18 tee box. Bryson hits his shot into the 17th green. Really, really good shot. And Rory's watching the whole thing. I mean, I'm standing probably 20 feet away from him, and he's just watching the entire thing unfold because he didn't want to hit while Bryson's hitting and, that whole deal. And that was the most tense I've ever felt at a major championship. I think it was comparable. This was a different thing, but when Spieth dumped 2 in the water on 12 at the 2016 Masters, that was like wild and tense as well. But this was a tension of, I don't know how this is going to go. And you could say that about Bryson, you could say that about Rory, you could say that about everybody in attendance. The air felt heavy. It was silent, but yet it was still loud, if that makes sense. It was one of the wilder, maybe that was my 26th major, Rick, and that was probably the most tense a back nine has ever felt. And then 18 was kind of chaotic, but that moment on 17, when Bryson's hitting in, they're tied, Rory's about to tee off on 18, that's the one that I'll remember from this golf tournament.
I was uncomfortable watching it on TV, so just being there or being involved in it would be a lot different. We've got a lot to get through, but that's KP's analysis of it. Let's hear what Bryson DeChambeau had to say.
As much as it is heartbreak for some people, I mean, it was heartbreak for me at the PGA, and I really wanted this one. And I turned the corner and saw I was a couple back, and I said, nope, I'm not going to let that happen. I need to focus on figuring out how to make this happen. And I was a little lucky. Rory didn't make a couple putts that he could have coming in, and I had an amazing up and down in the last. I don't know what else to say. It's a dream come true.
Rory missed a couple of putts that he could have made, and I had an unbelievable up and down on 18, Patrick. That is simplifying it, in my opinion, but that is technically what happened.
Yeah. I guess in the history books, that'll be one layer of the entire story. But I look at those last 5 holes, right? Rory McIlroy, he opens up a 2-stroke lead after that birdie on the 13th, and mostly everything is going to be made of those putts on 16 and 18. 18 was a devilish left to righter down the hill. It really snapped across the hole. Wasn't a great stroke still, but kind of more. I give him more grace for that one, obviously, than the one on 16. But you look at his ball striking down the stretch. He hit 1 of 3 fairways. He hit 1 of 5 greens in regulation when he opened up that 2-stroke lead. I thought the shot into 15 was a bit peculiar. I think when you go around Pinehurst number 2, and I'm sure KP can talk about it, the miss primarily is short. It feels like you always have a great chance to get up and down if you're short of the green. He hits a 7-iron, somewhat flighted for Rory McIlroy, lands it past pin high, rolls past the green into the wiregrass, and ultimately doesn't get up and down. And then you add in, the kick in the stomach there on 16 as well. He misses the green left on 17, has a great up and down there, and then misses it left on 18 as well. And so I think obviously a lot's going to be made of the putting from Rory McIlroy as well, but the ball striking kind of abandoned him too down the stretch when he really needed it.
Yeah, the highlights or the lowlights in this case, they will be the 2 missed putts late in this round. But the other side of the story here, KP, is, Bryson DeChambeau's in no great spot either. Coming up 18, there's still a chance he puts a square on the card himself, and we get into a 2, hey, maybe 3-way playoff. It's as this thing is unfolding, and the bunker shot from 55 or so yards that Bryson had, he described as like a 3 out of 100 shot, an all-timer. And to pull that out in that moment is just unbelievable.
Yeah, 3 out of 100. But then Johnson Wagner, as the chipping yips, did it on his first try. So I don't know. There's so many different directions to go with all this. Bryson hit it horribly on Sunday. I mean, horrible. Like he hit 5 fairways and 1. He drove the green on 13, so I call it 6 fairways, right? And only 1 guy was worse than that. I thought he shot 71, right? So yeah, because he started at 7 under and finished it at 6. He could have shot 76 with the way he hit it off the tee. I mean, he's fiddling with driver, changing out driver heads right before his round, which is a very Bryson, hilarious, crazy thing to do. And then it just doesn't go very well. I was amazed at him and Rory both of their short games throughout the week were very good. Bryson's two other shots I wanted to talk about. His up and down on 8. I don't know if you guys saw that. He was long on 8, just like Rory was long on 15. That up and down, I was standing right behind him when he got up and down. You couldn't even see like it was the green from where we were was about eye level with me. I mean, it was an unbelievable shot just to keep it on the green and to get up and down from there is a joke. His short game was so good. And then the other one, obviously, to talk about is, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just going to say the short game kind of held it together, KP. And that was where, I mean, he said in that quote there, he almost willed it, right? He said something like, I said, that's not going to happen again. And I've got to figure out a way.
Yeah. Which he did. I think he gets a ton of credit for what he finished, par, I think. No, bogey, par. So he played his last 4 and 1 over. But also, this to me felt like the one that Rory, more than any of the others that Rory has lost, the one that he gave away. Like he had a 2.5 footer, he had a 4 footer. You could argue, well, he doesn't usually make all those 22 footers. Well, he did, and then he gave away the easy ones, right? And so I think Rory lost it more than Bryson won it, which is not to take away from Bryson. Bryson was awesome throughout the entire week. But the other one I wanted to bring up was Rory into 5. He hits a second into 5, 3 more yards, 4 more yards, and he's putting for eagle and probably makes birdie there. And instead he makes bogey. And at the time I bookmarked it and I thought that could be a big one. And it turned out that it was, and that I don't think it was unlucky. People were like, oh, bad breaks. It's like, no, he didn't hit the shot. He almost did. It was really, really close. But he didn't. So it was just the whole day, and we just so rarely get this, Rick, is the back and forth. The rivalry is probably too much. I don't know that Bryson and Rory are rivals, but just the back and forth tension. You get Phil Stenson, you get Brooks Rahm kind of at the Masters last year. You have some moments of it, but it's so rare to have two super duper stars like that, two multi-time major winners really dueling for 18 holes, even though they weren't in the same pairing. That to me it created an awesome US Open.
Yeah, and for having it come down to literally the last stroke of a club is always exciting as well. We've got a lot more to do. We're going to dive into Bryson and Rory and where we go next from here, but we're going to do that on the First Cut podcast after this quick break. Welcome back to the First Cut podcast live on CBS Sports Network. And gentlemen, after an unbelievable US Open, we've got a lot to get into, and we're going to start with the champion. He is our most recent champion, Patrick, but he's not the newest because this is the second US Open crown for Bryson. He has made his mark on the game of golf, specifically in major championships this year. We'll talk about this stuff outside the ropes here in just a second, but the inside the rope stuff has been nothing short of splendid.
Yeah, he's been stellar. He's been a top 5 player in the world so far this year. You could argue a top 3 player, perhaps. The major championship results with the top 10 finish at the Masters after holding the first round lead there, and the runner-up finish at the PGA Championship as well, falling one short to Xander Schauffele. And I mean, it's just so impressive, the levels he's willing to dive into it, right? The number of stones he's willing to turn over. You think about all the different iterations of Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, this is the guy who was side saddling putting at one point in his professional career. That seems like ages ago, eons ago, that he was doing that, and just using compasses to figure out pin locations and arguing with fire ant mounds and everything. Like, this guy's story arc has been an absolute roller coaster, and we're clearly at a high end of it right now. And for this post bulk Bryson, post mad scientist Bryson to kind of piece it all together with the equipment, right? The battle of the bulge with his irons, the crank driver, like KP said, having to switch that driver head out right before the final round. It's really impressive, and it's cool to see all his hard work. Everyone talks about how hard of a worker he is, right? All the caddies on Live talking about it as well. And it's cool to see all that come to fruition in a major way.
Yeah, it's so interesting here, KP, because through all of those iterations, through all of the different versions, the accomplishments keep piling up. We just saw it there. Justin Ray had compiled how many guys had won a second U.S. Open since World War II, and it's Bryson, Tiger Woods, Ernie Els, and Jack Nicklaus. Then you add in a U.S. amateur and multiple U.S. Opens. That list is Bobby Jones, Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, Bryson DeChambeau. These are Mount Rushmore names, and these are the accomplishments that Bryson is taking care of right now.
Well, I think what it speaks to, and this kind of dovetails with what Patrick was saying, is his pedigree is incredible, right? Throughout all of his iterations, the thing that's been constant is his talent. I mean, I remember back, for some reason, I remember this tweet back in 2016, I think it was. And it was when he was playing in the in the Masters as the US Amateur champion. I think that was 2016, right? Maybe 2015, something like that. But I remember Tron Carter over at No Layup saying, Bryson, he said, I regret to report that Bryson absolutely compresses the golf ball. And I think what's so fascinating about Bryson is he's such a good golfer. Like, he's not just, people think of him as this sort of entertainer, YouTube entertainer, or long drive champion, because these have been different iterations that he's sort of purported. And he is those things, right? But he's so good at golf. And he's such a good iron player. His short game, I think, has gotten a lot better. His putting is underrated. Like, the arc of him is that he's a great borderline generational golfer. And all the other stuff is bonus, I think, because, and I wrote this a little bit for a column on Monday, like, he's such a character. And we have so few characters, right? You have a bunch of guys that are just kind of out there trying to make a living playing professional golf. Bryson is an elite character, We just don't get a ton of that. So it's been fun to experience, to watch, to be up close to, and yeah, he's. I mean, he could go out and win 3 more. I mean, he could win 5 major championships over the course of his career, and it would not be crazy.
Well, the entertainer is also a YouTuber. That was one of the first things he said in his winners press conference. Patrick, he said that allows him to connect with his fans and get his style of golf and the entertainment out, and he feels comfortable now being able to do that. And the reaction that he says he's getting is very, very positive. He was pretty clearly, in my opinion, the favorite in terms of fan favorites at Pinehurst. I mean, this is a PR turnaround at warp speed.
It is. And the first tournament I ever got lucky to cover was the 2021 BMW at Caves Valley,
Caves.
when the city of Baltimore, after Bryson almost shoots 59 on Friday, they're all behind him. They turn on him like this, snap of a finger. And you know who they're cheering for, of all people? Patrick Cantlay. They chose Patrick Cantlay over Bryson DeChambeau. And that was probably one of the low points, I would say, for Bryson DeChambeau's relationship with the fans. He wouldn't talk to the media at all. His manager wouldn't let him. After he loses that epic playoff to Cantlay, he almost charges a fan in the gallery for barking at him. It really doesn't get much lower than that. And then just 3 years later, not even, he is the fan favorite at the PGA Championship and at the US Open. You have guys at the Masters telling him that they appreciate what he does online. I'm sure KP got a lot of those comments as well at the US Open this week with his Twitter game. And it just goes into the story arc of the different iterations of Bryson. And this one is someone who knows himself. He's very sure of himself. He's matured a ton over those years. I think we tend to forget with these professional athletes that, you know what, they're humans, and a lot of them are kind of kids in their mid-20s trying to figure things out. And now that he's 30, he's certainly figured out who he wants to be and who he's comfortable being. And that's translated not only off the golf course with all the YouTube stuff. I can't believe I just called it the YouTube, but it also helps you inside the ropes, right? In the biggest moments in the game, like it did this past Sunday.
It is fascinating, KP, because with his game, he's bouncing back and forth to a bunch of different stuff. I mean, it is easy to remember when Bryson was yelling at cameramen for being too close to him. Now he's fist pumping them and covering the lens very cutely. Is that a word? I don't know if it is. But then, he goes from smashing himself in the face with a rope and blaming it on everybody else to stopping during rounds and signing autographs and letting everybody touch the US Open trophy. Is it fabricated, or is he just grown? Is he evolved? Like, what is happening here?
Well, I think it appears fabricated, right? It appears to be like this bit. And I think that I wrote about this on Monday as well. If Tony Finau did laps around 18 with the trophy, or Patrick Cantlay or Xander or John Rahm or anybody else, you'd be like, this is so inauthentic, right? This is so dumb. What are we doing? And with Bryson, it's still goofy. Like you can't do that and it not be goofy. But I also think it's kind of endearing, because I think that he deep down is actually a fairly sweet and kind-hearted person. I don't think he has like ill intentions. I think some of it is like he has experienced what it's like to be the outcast, like Patrick outlined there, and he doesn't want fans or anybody around him to feel like that. And so he, in his own weird, goofy way, kind of brings people in and lets them touch the trophy and dances with them after he wins and points to the crowds and fist. I mean, it's all. I started calling him the big thespian this week because it was just so theatrical and like he was crazy. But I think it's like somewhat sincere, even though it can come across as incredibly insincere in the moment.
It is interesting, and it'll be interesting to see what continues to happen with Bryson, because he will not be stagnant. He will continue to evolve and continue to change. But we've got a bigger problem, and that's Rory McIlroy, and we've got to figure out what's going on with Rory. We are going to continue this conversation of the First Cut podcast after this break. Welcome back to the First Cut podcast, live on CBS Sports Network. And now we have to do the deed and discuss what comes next for Rory McIlroy after a devastating major championship loss, one that he gave away. Patrick, I'll start here with you because we have spent so much time, or at least I have, defending the win luck around Rory McIlroy at major championships, and that, usually someone just nips him, somebody goes out and plays better than him. It's not really his fault. It is hard to take that stance when you miss two shorties coming in. You have a 2-shot lead with 5 to go. You play your final 4 holes at 3 over. It's getting that's a tough stance for me to take on this day.
Yeah, this one has to be the hardest one to swallow by far, by far. You look at St. Andrews, he hits the ball great. He 2-putts every single green there. Cam Smith shoots a back 930. All right, that one's pretty tough. And then we go to LACC last year, and you run into Wyndham Clark, who's hitting every shot in the book. He's getting up and down from everywhere, right? That up and down on the par 3 11th from jail, making par there. And Rory hits one bad shot, that wet shot in the par 5. You think, okay, I was still right there. And then this one, Rick, we talked about it last night. Rory wasn't the first one to blink. It was Bryson DeChambeau. He 3-putts 15.
Yeah.
Rory is still in a great position even after that bogey on 15. And once Bryson 3-putts, everyone's thinking that is the break that he has not gotten these past few years in the final round in the major championship that he needed to get over the hump. And then right when it happens, he 3-putts, misses that 2.5-footer on 16, and kind of crawls to the clubhouse. So it's a really tough pill to swallow. I'm not sure where he goes from here. I think if you want to be a positive and optimist in the Rory McIlroy camp for the fans out there, you think, well, the 2011 Masters was probably as bad as it got. And guess what he did at the very next major championship? He ran away from the field at the U.S. Open. Obviously, that's a young, innocent Rory McIlroy way back then, and the scar tissue has continued to pile on ever since. So I don't know if we're going to get that at the Open at Troon. I would root for it. It would be a great story to a great ending to a great year in golf, but it's really tough to project where he really goes from here.
Well, I know where he went immediately after the round, KP, and that was home, because he did not stick around for media. He jets out of the parking lot and then literally jets off, right? I mean, he was in the air heading home before Bryson DeChambeau was even done his winner's press conference. So Rory opted to just, I don't know, maybe talk about it later.
Yeah, I'm walking up just aghast at what I'm seeing here, somewhere in this frame. But yeah, this is a lot of detail for like 10 seconds of driving. Somebody did say he was driving so fast out of the parking lot that it's a good thing Officer Gillis wasn't around to arrest him.
This is a different kind of Rory McIlroy, is it not, KP? I mean, he's always gracious with his time. You had a nice piece on CBS Sports HQ, but imagine the feelings, not only in this moment, but what might be going on today. And he's going to try to really turn his attention and play the Travelers this week.
Is he going to play? Do you guys think?
Man. Oh, I would not play if I was him. I certainly would not.
I mean, he's gonna have to face the music at some point. I mean, I know this doesn't mean much, but he is on the presser schedule for Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, maybe he will. I think this is I agree with Patrick. This is the one that all the other ones you could plausibly talk yourself into, just got outplayed, just didn't hit the putts, just, whatever. And this is the one where you just finish par, and you win. You don't have to do, you've already done all the work, right? You've gotten all the 20 footers out of the way, everything's done. He didn't hit the ball well starting on 14. Yanks drive there, hits it over the green on 15, like Patrick said. 16, he played very well, but 3-putted. 17 doesn't hit the green. 18 doesn't hit the fairway or the green. He did not, that was not the closer that everybody has thought that he is over the course of his career. And he didn't handle the moment very well. And that was sort of the crux of my piece on Sunday night, was he didn't handle the moment on or off the course very well at all. And this is somebody who has built up a ton of capital with the way he's handled everything over the course of his career. Think about how well he handled the 2011 Masters, taking everything that went along with that. And this was about as poorly as I've seen him handle, whether it's adversity on the course or just in the aftermath. And people would say oh, I don't care if he talks to the media or whatever, but it was just emblematic of him not handling adversity well throughout that last hour and a half. I thought that was kind of the icing on the cake, if you will. So I don't know. I think Brendan Porath said this, shotgun start, and I agree with it, where it's okay, does it break? Is he going to retire? No. Is he going to just quit golf? No. But what is going through your head the next time you're on the back nine and you have a chance, right? Because he'll have 25 or 30 more chances at majors, at least in his prime playing really high level golf, barring injury. What is he thinking about if he's up 2 going into the final 9 at the Masters next year, the Open this year? I mean, I think that this was clearly a mental and emotional breakdown late, and it manifested in his physical play. But that's the part that I think you worry about going into whatever chances he has at majors in the near future.
Yeah, Patrick, I mean, is it a new sports psychiatrist? Does he need a new voice on the bag that can walk him through those moments? I don't want to, put Harry Diamond on the hot seat, but you talked about rock bottom in 2011 at the Masters. If that's rock bottom, this is very close, if not matching that. Sometimes guys do drastic things at rock bottom.
That's true. Harry Diamond has been on the hot seat, I feel like, ever since he got on the bag, to be fair, which probably is not fair to Harry Diamond, but it's crazy because, like KP said, this is a guy who's been closing out tournaments forever for his entire career, and for it to happen over span of an hour, I mean, was it 2015 US Open, Dustin Johnson but even then DJ hadn't won a major championship. So the only player in my lifetime, it was kind of Philish. It was Phil Mickelson-esque. You could say it was kind of Greg Norman-esque, which I'm sure Rory McIlroy does not want to be lumped into a category with those 2 other guys. So he's going to be fine moving forward. He's going to win more golf tournaments. He'll probably win another FedEx Cup playoff. He got the first place FedEx Cup points there at the US Open, which is a nice consolation prize. But I think the question about what is he going to do on the back nine of a major championship when he's in contention again, I think it's a big question mark. And I think that wasn't really much of a question mark coming into this week, because even though he had come up short, he had played very well on those back nines. He had, like KP said, someone just clipped him. Cam Smith shot 30 on the back nine at St. Andrews to beat him. That does not happen often. And I know Rory's probably thinking to himself that he lost this US Open more than Bryson won it. And that's such a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. And a couple of things real quick. I know we got to get the break, but he's 4 putts from having 7 majors, which is crazy. And then the other thing is, how many majors did Phil win after he lost that US Open, Patrick? How many more did he win?
How
5
4?
more? 4 or 5?
5, okay.
So there's definitely like, you know, some optimism there, but at what point you're right, Patrick, he's gonna win more. He'll probably win the BMW this year, win the whatever. He'll win in Europe. At what point is he defined by this? Like how many more of these have to happen until we're like, hey, it's actually this and not the four majors that he won early on that come to define his career. I'm not saying that that's true right now. I'm not even saying it ever will be true, but there's at least a path to where it could be true, right? And that's not a legacy that he wants, but it's kind of on the table right now in ways that he probably couldn't have imagined even 6 months ago.
Yeah,
Well, I'm not ready
and
to head down
we
that
talk about sorry, we talk about Bryson bringing this new age of fans. A lot of these fans haven't seen Rory McIlroy win a major championship, and they've only seen him come up short.
Yeah.
They've got a lot to learn, and we've got a lot more to cover. We're going to continue this conversation of the First Cut podcast right after this break. Welcome back to the First Cut podcast live on CBS Sports Network. And gentlemen, we had an unbelievable U.S. Open, and a lot of that credit goes to Pinehurst number 2. Thanks to Mother Nature. Sitting this week out, KP, the USGA had the opportunity to make this golf course play however they wanted. We could see it from television, how yellow and brown those green surfaces were getting throughout the week. We saw how punitive even good shots could be and how they were rejected and the challenge that it posed to the best players in the world.
I loved it. I know there was some consternation over sort of the way it looked or the way it played or whatever. And one point that was brought up to me was that the rough was not punitive enough. It did not punish players enough. And I I I think that's probably true. But I think US Opens can feel like a total slog whenever it is extremely punitive, right? And so the fact that it was somewhat punishing, but also you could get out of it, I enjoyed that better. I don't know if it's a better style or if it produced a better champion or whatever. I just enjoyed it more. And I thought that, again, going back to number 5, I thought that was a great example of got to hit some big boy shots. Rory's got 235 in on Sunday, and he hits it about 231. And if he hits a 233 or 234, then he maybe wins the tournament. And you're like, that's pretty sweet. Like, it's very different than the John Deere Classic. No offense to my hitters in Illinois. So I thought it was just awesome. It had that dusty, baked out, crusty, hot feeling of a U.S. Open. I don't know if that's how it came across on TV, but it was just kind of grimy, and it was just phenomenal. There's no signature holes, which I think kind of bothered some people. There's no holes that you're like, oh, that hole. I just want to watch it up. I thought 13 was awesome when they moved the tee up. They had that right pin, which was insane. I thought the whole thing was extraordinary, and I tweeted this last night. It's my number one perfect US Open venue. And that's very reactionary. You could probably talk me into after Oakmont next year, or Shinnecock, or maybe a handful of others, but to me it's the perfect US Open venue, and that's how it played out this year.
In a vacuum, Patrick, I tend to agree that the miss of the fairway was not as penal as I thought it was going to be with those wiregrass plants. I thought if they were, closer together, it would have been more of an issue. Now that doesn't mean that guys didn't get bad breaks or they had to stand on it or any of that. There was plenty of that, but I think what's okay is that's not the only way to get you at Pinehurst, right? It's not like that's the only defense. The green complexes are also a massive defense. And when you just start playing a little bit out of position, the errors compound in a big way. So I don't necessarily need the fairway miss to be as penal as other places because there are so many ways that this course can get you.
Yeah, a little bit of a rub of the green there, right? We saw guys like Max Homa and Victor Hovland have balls kind of sit up in that wiregrass, and they try to get after it, and were kind of looked kind of stupid doing so. And then you had someone like Bryson who got a number of good lies, and he wasn't the only one. A ton of the players near the top of the leaderboard, it seemed like they figured out, hey, we can push the envelope on this, and it's pretty likely I might draw a decent lie, and I'd much rather do that with a wedge than maybe go middle of the fairway with an 8-iron or something. But I'm glad KP brought up 13 and that pin on Saturday. How diabolical that was. We saw guys make birdie there, obviously, but the two players who were in contention and pretty much kissed their U.S. Open hopes goodbye. Tony Finau putted from in front of the surface, maybe like 100 yards in front of the surface. He looked so far away on TV. It was baffling that he pulled the flat stick, puts it into the bunker. He plays ping pong. And then you have the 36-hole leader, Ludwig Oberg, who looks like a legitimate robot. Artificial intelligence is coming to take away all of our jobs and the U.S. Open title. And he looks human there playing ping pong as well, carding a triple bogey. And that's nothing really tricked up. It's just a tough pin location you can't go at, right? There's no hazards around Pinehurst. There's no water to hit into. It's just there's a shot in front of you. You gotta hit it. If you don't execute it, you're gonna be in a poor spot. If you really don't execute it, you can face a triple bogey right then and there. And so I thought it was a great U.S. Open venue, like KP said. He rattled off 3 of them: Shinnecock, Oakmont, and Pinehurst number 2. Obviously, all 3 of those on the East Coast, which I think matters a lot, obviously. So I think we're going to have a good run of U.S. Open starting this year and going into the next few.
Speaking of the grit and grime, KP, Matthew Pavone, I want to talk about him real quick, but do it in a way that I thought was strategic, right? He was the one who I thought strategized the best compared to his skill set. He missed almost everything in the correct spot. He had to deal with Bryson in the final group. It didn't particularly end up well for him. It was a great finish for the entire week, but that was the strategy blueprint that we saw from him.
Well, and that was the thing about Pinehurst, right? Even if you weren't that long, I don't know what his driving distance was, or I don't even know that I know how long he is normally. But you could still manage your way around the place. On like take number 4, the long par 4. You don't necessarily have to be on that green. You can kind of leave it short, bump it up, and make par, which he didn't on Sunday in the final round. He made bogey there, but there's just a number of different ways to play that golf course, which, I go back to the Justin Thomas quote about Valhalla. It's like, well, there's kind of only one way to play the course. And I think when you have that variety, when you have, questions that get asked that are very difficult questions to answer and to solve, it makes for a great golf tournament. And you get Matthew Pavone's in the mix, you get Tony Finau's in the mix, and you get, probably 2 of the 5 best players in the world right now, and Rory and Bryson in the mix. So it was, I thought it was awesome, and he did a great job of managing the course without as much firepower as the rest of those guys.
And one of my favorite things that you pointed out, Patrick, is how close we were to Patrick Cantlay becoming a U.S. Open champion, right? We were not that far removed from that alternate reality.
We were not, and he almost backdoor won this entire thing. Everyone focused on Bryson, everyone focused on Rory, and Patrick Cantlay's there on the 15th green with a putt to get to 6 under, which was the ultimate winning score, right? He had 15 feet to get to 6 under with 3 holes to play. He obviously dropped a shot there on the 16th hole, but then even on 18 with everything going on, he still has a chance to post 5 under. He has about 15 feet underneath the hole, a really good look at it. You think, okay, Rory's going to miss this 4-footer. Bryson doesn't get up and down from the fairway bunker. Cantlay knocks us in. We're going 3 wide in a playoff. And it just seemed like he was kind of just hovering this entire time. And I was really impressed. It was scratchy at the start. He found his iron play during the middle section, and he finally got himself in the mix in a major championship. So I'm proud of PC for that.
Well, maybe this is the spark he needs to get his season going, because there's still one major championship to go. We are going to look ahead, believe it or not, to Troon and the Open Championship after these quick words. Welcome back to the First Cut Podcast, live on CBS Sports Network. And gentlemen, they feel like they're so long in between major championships, but when they start, they come quickly. And KP, we are just a couple of weeks away from the final men's major of the year, the Open Championship. We're going back to Royal Troon, which is hosted. I mean, it's a prolific host of Open Championships. This will be the 10th in 101 years, but our most recent is probably the one that everybody remembers, 2016, the duel between Henrik Stenson and Phil Mickelson. The numbers are eye-popping. Stenson gets in at 20 under par, while Phil finishes up at 17. That Phil Mickelson gap to third place, 11 shots. These two were playing a different course, a group all to their own on Sunday.
Yeah, it was speaking of back nine duels, that was that and this one yesterday were both right up there. I think Troon's gonna be so interesting because you have so many guys playing major championship golf very well this year. I've got 12 guys that are under par in the aggregate across the four majors, or across, I guess we've only played 3 so far. So Bryson's at 28 under, Xander's at 23 under, Morikawa 17, Scheffler 16, Rory 13, Fleetwood 10, and then Cantlay, Henley, Hideki, Connors, Lowry, and Finau are all under par as well. So I think you got to start with that list and just say, okay, who gets the good side of the draw? Who's a good Open Championship player? Fleetwood's super interesting. He played great last year for 2.5 days. He's been playing pretty good golf this year. Patrick was just talking about this. Rory at 6.5 that feels really short for somebody who hasn't won a major in 10 years. I know he's playing pretty good golf, but I think Xander and Ludwig are really interesting at 14-1.
Yeah, Rory McIlroy 6.5-1, Scotty Scheffler at 5-1, and Patrick, that's 7 golfers shorter than 20-1. It does feel like after basically 6 months of there only being 1 or 1.5 or maybe 2 guys that can win golf tournaments, we're starting to see resurgence from Colin Morikawa. We're starting to see Hideki Matsuyama play a lot better. Victor kind of on the verge of being back. Throw in Ludwig, who we probably weren't expecting to contend at major championships as quickly as he is, and Bryson finding his game again. It does feel like there are a lot more guys who can win majors, and now we're going to probably the major that creates the most chaos.
Exactly. And you look across those first 3 major championships, there are kind of stars going in under the radar that popped up. Morikawa at the Masters, Hovland at the PGA Championship, and then Patrick Cantlay this week at Pinehurst #2. So I'm looking at some of those stars who maybe underperformed, honestly, across the first 3 major championships. One in particular for me is Brooks Koepka. Right, he obviously has the history in Europe, going and playing the Challenge Tour over there, and so he's a great Open Championship competitor. It hasn't been great so far this year in the major championships. He's usually a fast starter and a slow finisher. I'm thinking maybe this Bryson win kicks him into gear. He gets back in the gym. His team has him go through those workouts, right? Makes him throw up, do all that fun stuff. And he claims the claret jug, and we're talking about a potential Grand Slam at Augusta next spring.
There you go. Patrick McDonald gets the last word. Kyle Porter, thank you very much. This has been the First Cut Podcast live on CBS Sports Network. And if you want some more, we've got some more. Find us on the Golf on CBS YouTube channel or download us wherever you get your podcasts.